The summer of 1943 was a pivotal moment for armored warfare in Britain. The war had dragged on for years, and every nation involved was racing to perfect their tanks. Britain had invested heavily in the Cromwell cruiser tank, proud of its Rolls-Royce Meteor engine and advanced engineering. The Americans, meanwhile, had deployed the Sherman tank, a reliable but less sophisticated vehicle. In August, at Bovington Camp, an event that would later be known only as Exercise Dracula took place. The goal was simple in theory: test the endurance and reliability of British and American tanks over a grueling 2,000-mile journey across the country. But what happened was anything but simple. Major General Richardson, a man known for his meticulous reports and attention to detail, had insisted on secrecy. Only a select few engineers and military personnel were allowed on site. The British had high hopes. They believed their Cromwell tanks would outperform the American Shermans in speed, efficiency, and firepower. Pride was on the line. The first day of the trial began with optimism. Cromwells roared to life, their engines purring with power. The Shermans, smaller and less advanced, rolled alongside them. The engineers took notes, the drivers checked their gauges, and the sun rose over the camp as the convoy began its journey. By midday, cracks began to appear. One Cromwell suffered a minor engine failure, causing a ripple of concern among the British engineers. They shrugged it off, confident that the tank could be repaired quickly. But as the miles accumulated, failures became more frequent. Hydraulic systems failed, tracks broke, and engines overheated despite careful maintenance. The Sherman tanks, in contrast, showed remarkable resilience. Their engines ran smoothly, their tracks held firm, and they required minimal attention. Engineers took notes in disbelief. The data was clear. The Cromwell, with all its advanced technology, was failing at a rate far higher than the Americans had anticipated. By the end of the first week, morale among the British crews had begun to falter. Pride turned into frustration, as every breakdown meant lost hours and mounting pressure. The Americans, quietly observing, maintained a steady pace, their confidence growing with every mile. Major General Richardson observed everything with a critical eye. He documented each failure meticulously, noting the exact time and reason for each mechanical issue. His reports would later reveal that the Cromwell required 0.07 hours of maintenance per mile, more than double the Sherman's 0.03 hours per mile. The humiliation for the British engineers was palpable. Their pride in the Cromwell had blinded them to the simpler, more reliable design of the Sherman. For years, they had believed that superior engineering meant superior performance. Exercise Dracula proved otherwise. As the trial continued, the differences became stark. British drivers were forced to stop multiple times a day for repairs, while the American crews moved steadily, almost effortlessly. Documents later revealed that the British had underestimated the stress that a long endurance test would place on their advanced systems. The test at Bovington Camp was more than a mechanical trial. It was a lesson in industrial philosophy. The Americans had designed a tank that was simple, robust, and easy to repair in the field. The British had prioritized engineering innovation and speed, but at the cost of reliability. When the trial concluded, Major General Richardson's report was devastating. It concluded that while the Cromwell had impressive theoretical performance, in practice, it could not sustain long missions without frequent maintenance. The Sherman, by contrast, was a triumph of industrial efficiency and practical design. The implications were far-reaching. British armored divisions continued to rely on the Sherman in subsequent operations, recognizing that battlefield success depended not on speed or theoretical capability, but on reliability and consistency. Historians later noted that Exercise Dracula had a profound impact on post-war tank design. Engineers began to emphasize durability and ease of repair over pure technological sophistication. The lessons learned shaped military procurement policies for decades to come. The documents uncovered decades later confirmed what was suspected at the time. The Sherman required less maintenance, had fewer mechanical failures, and could operate in a wider range of conditions than the Cromwell. In short, the American tank was better suited for the realities of war, despite being less advanced on paper. British pride had been wounded, but the lesson was clear. In modern warfare, reliability beats innovation when lives and missions are at stake. Exercise Dracula became a case study in military academies, demonstrating that even the most elegant engineering cannot replace practical dependability. The story of that summer in 1943 is remarkable, not just for the machines, but for the people involved. Engineers, drivers, and officers all learned the hard way that assumptions must always be tested under real-world conditions. The failure of the Cromwell did not mean the British were incompetent. It meant that war demands pragmatism. The Sherman's success showed that the combination of industrial might, simple design, and practical maintenance could outperform the most sophisticated engineering when put to the test. Years later, surviving members of the exercise would recall the irony. The tank they had considered inferior had outperformed their pride and skill at every turn. Exercise Dracula was not just a mechanical trial. It was a lesson in humility and industrial strategy. Today, historians and tank enthusiasts study the documents and photographs from Bovington Camp to understand the clash between engineering brilliance and practical reliability. It remains a striking example of how democratic nations won the war, not just on the battlefield, but through superior industrial philosophy. The American Sherman tank's triumph was quiet but undeniable. Exercise Dracula remains a shocking example of how innovation without reliability can fail catastrophically, and how the simplest solutions sometimes yield the greatest victories.